Hey guys and girls, I'm going to show you how to make this cool color wheel today using a piece of paper, some scissors, and something to color with. Now crayons or colored pencils would work really good for this, and that's what I used for my example here. Or if you have some paints at home that you want to try, you can go ahead and use your paints for this too. I'm going to go ahead and set my example to the side, and we're going to start with our piece of paper. Okay, our piece of paper is probably going to be a rectangle depending on where you got your paper from, if you tore it out of a sketchbook or a notebook. But what you're going to need to do is you're going to make a square out of this rectangle. And the way that you do that is you take the corner of your paper and bring it down until you make a triangle. Just like that. And then this other piece, this extra piece over here, is going to get cut off. So right along the edge of your paper here is where you're going to cut. And this is going to give you a nice square shape. All right, now that you have your square shape, we're actually going to leave it folded like a triangle like this. And you are going to put it in front of you so that the base, the wide part of the triangle, is towards you, and this point is pointed away. So if you opened up your paper, it would be a diamond. That's how you want your triangle. Okay, we're going to try and fold this to make like almost like a tulip shape. So I'm going to put my finger in the center here, and then I'm going to bring this point across the paper and fold it. Then I'm going to take this other end and bring that across the other way, kind of get it to line up as best as I can, and fold it. And now this almost looks like a little flower, like a little tulip or something. Okay, this is the important part. This is going to end up being the center of your design. And what you need to do now is decide what kind of petal you want for your design. I just made like a regular standard flower petal by kind of just cutting a round shape. If you want to do something a little bit more exciting than that, you can. But you're going to try and leave the center and a little bit around the center connected. So I would say try not to cut anywhere in this section here. Everything else you can start to cut along the edges to make your shape. So if I wanted to do a flower shape, I would just kind of cut something like that out. Or if you want to try something different, you can try something different. It's totally up to you. Maybe I'm going to try something just a little bit more interesting. I tried to make almost like a guitar shape. And then when you open this up, very carefully so you're not going to rip anything apart, you're going to get your shape just like that, your edges. And now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different petals, and we are going to make each one of these a color from a color wheel that shows both primary and secondary colors. So your primary colors are red, yellow, and blue, and your secondary colors have to go in between your primary colors so that they show you how they're mixed. For example, orange has to go in between yellow and red, because if you mix yellow and red together, you would get orange. And I colored these using a crayon to go from light to dark, so I'll show you how that could work. Let's say I start it with my red crayon. My crayons are tricky. I have to actually check the label and make sure that they are red, because some of them look like red, but then they end up being pink or purple or something else when I actually color them. So there's my red. So if this shape here is going to be my red and I want to go dark to light, I want the lightest red to be closer towards the center. So I'm going to start by pressing very hard with my crayon along this outside edge, and then I get a little bit lighter, and then very light as I go towards the center. And even if I have to go back over this a couple of times to get it to look just right. As long as it goes from light to dark. And now I'm coloring, I'm pressing hard with my crayon to make it look darker in this area. And to get it even darker, I could add a little bit of black over top of the edge over here. And that's kind of what I did on this one to get that to go even darker. Anytime you add black to a color, that's called a shade. So I'm going to go in and just very lightly with my crayon go over the black. Okay. I recommend using an orange crayon to make the orange, especially if you're using crayon. If you try and mix your yellow and your red crayon together, you're not going to get a super great orange color. I just went right ahead in with my orange crayon and used orange. If for this project you have your paints out and you want to try and use your paints, you can go ahead and do that. You're going to need a little glass of water. Be very careful to not spill, and your brush. And you want to paint the light part with just plain water first to get this very light. So watch, I'm going to take my brush, dip it in the water, and closer towards the center where I want a very light orange color, I'm going to paint that with water first. Then I can go in, add a little bit more water on my brush and go right into that orange paint and see if I can get this to go from light to dark. Now the way I want my orange to get darker is by adding a higher concentration of the paint in that area. So I'm going to go back in and I'm going to keep rubbing this orange, not adding any more water, just trying to get more color on my brush so I can go back in and look how much darker that got just from adding some more color to it. Now, if you want this to kind of fade, you're just going to like lightly wisp over it with your brush. You can even go back if you want with a wet brush that's kind of been blotted. So you get the extra drips off. You can kind of go in and see if you can blend that. And then if you want the shade on the other side, take a little bit of black. You don't need a lot. If you do too much, it's going to be too heavy. And you could add just a little bit of black on that edge. Okay, I'm going to blot my brush, dip it in water, get some of the extra water off, and then go back in with a dry kind of brush and see if I can kind of dab that to get that to blend. It doesn't look great now because it's wet. Once it dries, it'll get a little bit lighter. But that's the other thing you can do. But you're going to follow your primary and secondary colors all the way around the color wheel and have some fun.